Good morning. You're joining us live here on India Today's social media handles. I'm Akshita Nandagopal, getting you all the top stories that we're tracking this Wednesday. We've woken up here to very, very somber, tragic news that's coming from the United States. Everyone's talking about what's played out in Texas. If you haven't been able to catch the news, I'll just sum up for you what's happened essentially. You had an 18-year-old gunman. I'm not going to call him, he's a kid essentially, an 18-year-old. And he stormed into an elementary school in Texas, shot dead several little children as well as teachers. In all, 22 people have died, 21 in the school. So I'll just explain to you what happened. This kid, 18-year-old, identified as Salvador Ramos, has been shot dead as well by the US police soon after the incident broke out inside the elementary school. He had in his possession several weapons. Remember that it's legal in the United States, in Texas, to own a handgun at the age of 18, believe it or not. And that's why he had a legally owned handgun. He also had reportedly a rifle. Now, this was fully planned by this kid. What he did was he first shot at his grandmother, who's also unfortunately passed away. Then he made his way to an elementary school where there were little children, opened fire indiscriminately at them, went into classroom after classroom and shot children. In all, 19 children have died reportedly. Teachers also have died in this incident. And these children who've died are actually between the age of 5 to 11. That's how tragic this is. These are little kids who are paying the price for a lack of gun control in America. And that's what's led to so much outrage right now. There have been condemnations pouring across the world. No one's able to really digest that something like this can even happen. Because like I said, the handgun that this kid owned was actually legal. Based on Texan law, you can actually own a handgun at the age of 18. You can't drink at 18, but you can actually own a handgun. And it's led to a lot of chorus and questions, with US President Joe Biden leading from the front in not just expressing his condolences to the families there. You can only imagine what they're going through. Heartbroken. Imagine that they'd have packed off their kids to school thinking it's just another day, and then to receive that call from authorities saying that, look, there's been a shooting in that school. What does that do to a family? US President Joe Biden has mentioned exactly that. He said that the US flag will fly at half-mast for across the White House and all other public offices in condolence of what has happened. And beyond that, he's raised up the issue of the gun control laws, the fact that there's not enough regulation. It's something that Democrats have spoken about, but nothing's been done on the ground, which is why these kind of shootings continue to happen. Biden has said exactly that. He's like, why do these kind of things happen more in America than anywhere else across the world? This kind of an incident has put the spotlight again on legislations that are needed. There's a lot of focus on the Second Amendment, which is the right of self-defense, of giving firearms to people. But what kind of age is 18? What kind of regulation is there? Because this kid had in fact taken to social media for the last many months, posting pictures of the weapons he has. Reportedly, he had gifted himself when he turned 18 this particular handgun. So it was his birthday gift to himself. He'd posted a picture of guns, sent it to a stranger, to a random girl on Instagram, and with a very cryptic message, kind of indicating that this is what he was going to do. So it was fully planned. It was orchestrated the way he intended to. He was shot dead soon after. There are images also that we have here on India Today, which you can see on our social media handles, of this boy, Salvador Ramos, and the kind of posts that he put on Instagram. Photos of him in the school campus, armed to the teeth. He had with him a handgun, some reports suggesting that he had with him a rifle as well. He was shot dead after a police team received inputs about the shooting, managed to barge into the school campus, saw him and immediately neutralized him because of the fact that he was indiscriminately firing upon little children. We're still trying to get details, ascertaining details on the final death toll as well as the identity of these little children. Heartbreaking as it is, the parents right now are having to undergo DNA tests to help and identify these children. They are minors, so there's no record of who is who. And that's what's being done right now to identify all of the children who've died in this particular attack. There are several others who've also been injured. But this is the worst, the most brutal and barbaric act that you can imagine. And it's still sinking in for many people that something like this could even happen. It's one of the worst attacks that has happened, one of the worst mass shootings that have been reported in the United States. But even as Joe Biden has spoken about gun control, about the need to do something about it, there are serious questions about why politicians simply don't walk the talk on this issue. It's something that, in fact, India has also raised. At a time when the United States tries to preach to us about human rights violations, Minister S. Jaishankar, during the 2+2 dialogue, when he'd gone to the United States, mentioned exactly this, saying, talk about the mass shootings that are happening in the United States. That's condemnable. That's something that there needs to be a narrative set on, and there needs to be a conversation on. Hopefully, with this kind of a horrific incident coming to light, there will be something done on the ground. But right now, every person that we've spoken to, journalists, experts, activists in the United States, they've all said that, look, we don't expect or trust anything to happen even beyond this incident, that the condemnations will pour in, the tears will pour in, but that's where it'll stop. There'll be nothing that changes on the ground. We're getting you all the latest updates on that story, the investigation, the details about the shooter, the teenager who killed so many children. All those details are here on our social media handles as well. The other story that I want to tell you about is another tragic one here in India. An incident of a terror attack that's been reported in Srinagar last evening, where a constable was killed. And along with the constable, he was in fact outside his house. This happened in the Saura area of Srinagar. He was outside his house with his daughter, a 9-year-old girl called Safa. She was with her dad holding his hand when these terrorists came in and started firing at him. She's also suffered bullet wounds. Unfortunately, the constable didn't make it. Safiullah Khadri has passed away due to the bullet wounds, the critical bullet wounds that he sustained. His daughter, the 9-year-old girl, is in hospital. She's currently stable. She suffered injuries to her arm, which is where she received the bullet injuries. Heartbreaking as it is, it also makes your blood boil that something like this can happen in the valley, and these terrorists, these cowards, are targeting little girls. They've been targeting women, children also, and clearly this time around nothing stopped them. The fact that this constable was with his daughter didn't stop them from continuing to fire at them. The reason this constable was targeted, very simply, was because of his uniform. At this point, officials and security personnel on ground are trying to identify the terrorists, but they vowed to ensure that they avenge the death of this constable. As far as young Safa is concerned, her condition is stable. As I mentioned, she's being treated in a local hospital. She suffered bullet injuries to her arm and she's lost a lot of blood, but things are under control medically speaking. We're all, of course, praying for her speedy recovery. As far as reactions are concerned, and the kind of outrage that there needs to be, are we seeing that really on the ground? Well, in Kashmir, as always, the terror apologists are continuing to play this down completely. The kind of condemnation that you'd expect when a 9-year-old girl is injured is something we've not seen. But here on India Today, we're putting out all the voices to ensure that there is action, to ensure that the terrorists behind this kind of a barbaric act are immediately identified and that there's a crackdown against them. Cops have vowed that they're going to identify who's done it, and they're going to ensure that they're immediately found, identified and acted upon, that there's a crackdown. But it's obviously put the question also about what the condition is currently in the valley about radicalization, because in the last few weeks there have been multiple incidents of women, of children, of Kashmiri Pandits, minorities also being targeted. So serious questions being asked on what's the situation currently in the valley, what's led to the spurt of terror surge that's being reported right now in Kashmir. That's also another story that we're tracking very closely this morning. Unfortunately, 2 heartbreaking incidents that we're reporting on that remains the top focus here on India Today. Tomorrow, same time.